I had a very powerful Mayan cosmology reading this week that I've been integrating and still thinking a lot about. And something that came up, there's kind of two parts to it. So the first one is learning about myself through another modality, like another way of looking at things. I always find to be really fascinating because pretty much the same thing that happens every time that I learn something new is that I already knew those things. Like it's almost like confirmation or recognition of things that I already knew that felt intuitive, but having someone else put words to something, or even sometimes just having a reminder of who I am, but again, who I already know that I am, is really beneficial. Which is actually the feedback I get from human design readings is often that it's confirmation for people from what they already know to be true about themselves, or just helps people notice, like, okay, I am on the right track. That's also what I thought. That's what I was feeling into it intuitively. Things aren't often that surprising to people, although that can happen. But a lot of times it's this confirmation that can be really powerful. And that in and of itself is transformation. And then there was another part of the reading that just has had me thinking a lot the last week. And it's a couple things all wrapped up into sacred time and how disconnected a lot of us are from dropping into sacred time. I got my reading done by I am Christine Olivia, I believe on Instagram and TikTok. I think she's a couple different places. And I found it beneficial to hear her talk about where this disconnection started. This disconnection started with colonization. Like, for example, the Maya were very deeply connected to time. They had been studying time for thousands of years and had all this data and science about the cosmos and our connection to it and our connection to animals as humans, like all of these different things that they had been studying deeply. And then with colonization, where we are with our current time and how time operates is a really tricky force, right? Because it keeps people in hustling and it keeps people in disconnection without even realizing that they're disconnected. And something that we miss in that disconnection is synchronicity, connection, community, care, like all of these things that we need that are important to us that we get disconnected from. And so I think we're moving into a place where more and more people are feeling this disconnect. Like they know that hustling and going to a 9 to 5 doesn't feel good because it's not natural. Like it's not the natural flow that we are meant to have. And I read a book called Rest is Resistance by Trisha Hersey. She started a ministry in Chicago and she made this place for Black people specifically to be able to come, whether it be between jobs or after work, or just people that didn't necessarily have like a place where they could rest during the day. And she created this place where people could rest, even if it was, 10 minutes in between something. This nap ministry is what it was called. And a big part of this work and her work in her book talks about from the time of slavery up until now that people who are making money off of people have worked really hard to figure out what's the exact amount of labor I can get out of a body, before it breaks, but where I can basically squeeze everything out of it. And her solution to this and resistance to this is if we give people more places to rest, more time to rest, people can start imagining a different way, imagining a different life, a different way to do things. Because part of that squeeze of labor and pushing people to their limit is so that they're so exhausted that they don't even have a chance to buck the system or think of a different way to do it because they're just in survival mode. So she was like, okay, I'm going to give people a place to rest, and I'm going to give people a place where they can imagine something different, imagine a different life, imagine more than this. And her work is just really impactful in this place of getting out of hustle culture and really looking at rest as a form of resistance. That part of how we're going to reclaim and readjust and reset these systems is to participate in them differently, imagining a different way to do things, but we need to give people space to even do that. Calendar, our current way of viewing time, is very connected to these old bits of colonization and slavery and hustle culture. To the powers that be, to, the 1%, to certain corporations, they pay a lot of money for people to not have time to imagine that things can be different and better. So the way that we are experiencing time impacts us on every level. It impacts our relationships. It impacts our quality of life. It's no wonder that people get stuck in lack mentality around money when so many people around us are struggling. And how many people then are, feeling stuck in a relationship that's no longer serving them, but because it's so complicated to get out of it, and it's so, oh, I only have a couple days off a year. How am I even going to move into a new place and figure this out? On top of, how do I meet someone that I actually care about and have enough time to spend time with them and get to know them and all of these things. So because of all of those factors, right, because there's so many forces and powers and old paradigm things trying to keep us stuck in the way of experiencing time, we have to actively take it upon ourselves to move away from that system, to move into this spaciousness, into this cyclical, energetic aspect of time, so that we can liberate ourselves and liberate other people around us. When we can move into connection to source energy, we can move into connection with all that is around us, all the nature around us, all the animals around us, to see, and a lot of indigenous cultures looking at animism, or looking at that everything around us is alive, and how do we treat it? If we look at rocks as living, and all the animals and the mountain and everything is living. So how do we take care of it if we have that approach that everything is living? Because that's really part of this, right? Sacred time. It's really about time and space and everything in time and space. So that means everything that you see, everything around you is alive. And how do we take care of things around us if that's the perspective? And I know a lot of people are feeling the inner call to move this way, to create more spaciousness in their life, to slow down, whether that's through meditation, whether that is a change up of a schedule, whatever that looks like. These intentional ways that we slow down so we can experience something different with time is really what we're looking at. And that's kind of the step in conscious dating, conscious parenting. All of these things are, instead of doing these things just because these are the things that we do, how do we do them with intention, and how do we do them consciously? And there are so many things within our control that we can drop into and focus on that can bring us closer to this experience of sacred time more often. Within partnership, right? It's even part of how we connect to sacred time is connecting to ourselves very deeply. So when I'm talking to people about relational work, it's almost always individual work, right? It's what do you need to see about what's being poked at in your relationship? What ownership do you need to take over what's happening in your relationship? Not that we don't look at the other person's behavior, but it's kind of that space of a lot of times we get lost trying to solve the relationship through the other person versus kind of slowing down and going, okay, what am I needing to look at here? What's within my control to change? So that's one thing, right? What are the ways I can change my patterns, look at my patterns, look in the mirror when it comes to relationships? And then the other part is, how do I get so deeply connected to all that is nature, my spirituality? How do I connect in deeper? Both of those things can really help us connect to more synchronicity, more magic in the world, and have us connecting more to the other humans in this world, but also connecting to Mother Nature. And that's really a call that we're being asked of right now. So if you're feeling the call to connect to a different rhythm, you're not alone. And the work that I do with people is very, very in that spot also. So thank you for joining me today on this talk around sacred time and relationships and connection to not just people, but to nature. You can find me at soulfootingguidance.com. I'm also on TikTok and Instagram, so you can find me there. I am now doing human design readings as well as one-on-one mentorship. So feel free to take a look at either one. I'd love to see you, and we'll go from there.